For quite a long time, I was an avid back button focuser. But really the last 12 months, I have started to veer away from that sometimes. And in this video, I want to talk about why. What's up YouTube? Anthony back with another video. And in this one, we're talking back button focus. Now, when I discovered back button focus some years ago, it was like the best thing since sliced bread. It really made focusing easier for me and it really fit my workflow. So every camera that I had it set up back button focus and I used it 100% of the time. I rarely, if ever, veered away from using back button focus. But within the past year, I've really started to scale back from that a little bit. And I found that sometimes back button focus either doesn't really have any advantages or it makes the photo shoot a little bit more cumbersome than it needs to be. And I want to touch on why that is for me. Now, again, this is just for me. Everyone else has their own use case of, back button focus if they use it, and maybe these things won't apply to them. But for me, these are the reasons why I have scaled back a little bit from using back button focus all the time. Now, back button focus, in my opinion, was really big in the DSLR world when you had to do a lot of focus and recomposing. It really was just easier to have a button that was dedicated just to the focus. So that way you didn't have to keep the shutter button half pressed as you're moving the camera around trying to compose your shot. And then, making sure that you don't, raise it up and then it focuses again or you accidentally take the shot. It just was a lot easier to have that button that was dedicated to it. So that way your shutter could just be the shutter button. But with mirrorless cameras and the autofocus in mirrorless cameras, that really isn't as important anymore because I don't have to focus and recompose anymore. With mirrorless cameras, the focusing is in basically the entire viewing area in most mirrorless cameras, and especially cameras with autofocus. I don't have to focus and recompose. I can just compose and the autofocus is going to find the eye or it's going to find the face or it's going to find that subject and I can just take that shot. So it's really not important to need a designated focus button when I'm not focusing and recomposing anymore. Obviously you can still have it, but to me, the benefit really isn't there. So I found that, I don't really have to use that method anymore. And at the end of the day, it's ultimately become an extra button press that becomes cumbersome and unnecessary. If I'm doing a portrait shoot, having to hit that button every time and then hit this button to take the picture and constantly go back and forth hitting the two buttons, it's just cumbersome, it's redundant, and it's unnecessary. So, if I'm doing a typical portrait shoot, especially if I'm not needing to do a lot of servo stuff, when I have to do a lot of servo focusing, I will keep that back button focus because it's easier to just be able to hold down that button to do the servo focusing, and then I can just do the shutter where it need be. So if I'm doing a ton of servo, even using a mirrorless camera, I will most times still use back button focus. But for most photo shoots, portrait photo shoots these days, it's just easier to be able to just only have to push the shutter button and not do two buttons every single time I want to take an image. It's just not necessary because the focusing is so good these days in mirrorless cameras that it's more time to hit the two buttons than it is to just be able to hit the one. And especially, when I'm getting a lot of shots, I'm really hitting down on that. I don't use high speed too much because, I prefer to just be a little bit more controlled in my shutter. But when I'm taking shot after shot after shot after shot after shot, and, I've taken 500-600 shots in a shoot, man, to have to hit two buttons every single time to take those photos, to me is just absolutely not necessary. It just doesn't work for my workflow. There's no benefit. If anything, it just hurts my wrist more because I'm constantly doing this. So I don't use it. If I'm doing typical portrait stuff, I will set the focus to the shutter button and all is good in the world. So that's basically it. There's not much more to it than that. I just have found that it's just not necessary anymore with mirrorless cameras. So I would love to know how you feel. If you are a back button focus user, do you still use back button focus even if you're shooting with the mirrorless camera? I would love to know. Leave me a comment down below and holla at your boy. So that's all I got in this video. As I say in every single video, I hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying healthy. Hope you're staying sane. I will catch you on the next video. And until then, take care.